Hey, thanks for hitting play. I got another interesting episode of the spinoff show for you. As you can see in the title, John Bellotti Jr. is on the show. If you listen to the Jock and Nerd podcast, you're familiar with that name. He's been on a few times. He's a big-time Godzilla fan, big-time martial arts, Hong Kong film fan. We'll get into that in this show. But before being a fan of things, he's fucking talented as hell. The man is an artist. You can find his work on robo7.com. That's ROBO, the number 7.com. You can also find him on Instagram, robo7 spelled out on Instagram. Along with being an amazing artist, he's also a scenic painter in the movie and film industry and TV industry as well. Currently, he is a scenic painter for The Blacklist, going on 6 years. You've probably heard of that show. I think I have a really interesting conversation with him about Bruce Lee, art, Godzilla. We get real nerdy and even talk about Gamera. So I think it's an interesting conversation. You're still here. Check it out. This is the Jock Spinoff Show. We're live, Bellotti. Well, we're not live, but hey, Bellotti, how's it going?
I'm great. How are you, Tony?
I'm amazing. This is so. I've been looking forward to doing this with you because Imran and Rugboy aren't here. I know that sounds terrible, but whenever we have the four of us on, it's fun. But I feel like you're only we only get bits and pieces of you.
Yeah, I love those guys, and I love hanging out with you guys when we see each other in Chicago, and I love being on the show. But we're four very strongly opinionated nerds, basically.
Right.
And I always have a lot of things to say, and everyone else does. But you guys get to do it on a weekly basis, and I only come on like every once in a while. So I feel like a lot of my personality gets lost when I do that show with you guys, and I feel like my energy level kind of sucks. Also, because a lot of times it'll be on like a weeknight or something if I got to work, and that's always tough for all of us. Or if it's like later at night. But yeah, it's just funny because like the three of you guys will go, and then Imran will ask me a question, and I'm answering it, and I'm like, yeah, well, this is how I feel, blah, blah, blah. And 2 seconds into it, he just cuts me off and just goes off on a tangent. And then I forget what I was going to say. And I'm like, oh, what was my point again? And then we're on to like a new subject, and I lost my point. So then when I listen to the podcast, when I listen to like everything I'm saying, I was like, oh, wait, I was supposed to say this at that point, and I was going to say this at that point, blah, blah, blah. So this is very nice. I've been looking forward to this for a while as well. So thank you for having me on.
Hey,
Tony.
No problem, man. I think it's fun doing. Obviously, it's fun doing the Jock and Nerd podcast, the main one.
Yeah.
But with what the fuck was that in the background?
I kicked a box below my desk.
Oh, okay. I thought someone was breaking in.
No, if they did, I'd still keep going.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to just have us recording and then someone's trying to break it. I think there was a live YouTube video once where someone was recording something.
There was.
And someone tried to break in.
Yeah, we were talking about that when I was on the show once, and you heard something in the background, and they were like, what the hell was that? Are you being Rob Bellotti? And I was like, oh shit, maybe I am. And then I think one of us brought that up, that it was like live on the air or something, that they were getting robbed. Someone's coming through their window. Yeah,
that'd be pretty insane.
Yeah.
Just a live recording of a crime happening.
Yeah, that'd be great.
No, but what's fun, I mean, what's interesting about doing this as opposed to the other shows, we have these topics that we have to hit on. And although our shows can go 2 hours, 2.5 hours, it still feels like they move so quickly in terms of when you're recording it.
Right.
And when you have 3 people on, it's a lot, because you have Imran who just fucking is a motor and just can't stop talking. You have Rugboy who just has this wacky personality, so he's got to get his say in. You have me in there who's also trying to fight for airtime. So then when you throw a fourth person in there, it can be a lot. I've even mentioned to Imran, sometimes I don't like the 4-person format just because it doesn't feel like everyone's going to get enough time.
Yeah, I agree.
Or the show is just going to be 4 hours.
I agree. Because there was that one time we were toying with having August Ragoni on the Jock and Nerd show. And then it was, the conversation was, for those that don't know, August Ragoni is probably the foremost, most knowledgeable person about Japanese monster movies and anime and the Japanese Power Rangers, Ultraman, all that stuff. So we were talking about maybe getting him on for the Power Ranger movie and talking about the history of Power Rangers, whatnot. And I think you guys wanted me to go on as well. And I said, that's going to be a lot of people. And then someone was, I think either you or Rug Boy were going to drop out just so we could have us all on. And even then, like August could just have his own show. Yeah. Because he knows so much. So
I've actually, I think I told you this off the air, but I actually talked to August and I'm definitely going to have him on this at one point. And he's an interesting guy. He can definitely talk. He's one of those, you throw a nickel in him and he's off to the races for 2 hours.
Yeah. I mean, you always come away learning something when you talk to him.
I was just amazed at just how much he could talk and how interesting it was. So I can't see that happening on our I mean, we could make it work, but he would deserve, he needs his own time.
He really does.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
What are you up to? Are you still doing the Blacklist stuff?
Still on the Blacklist. Yeah, we're coming towards the sort of end of our season, which is like mid to late April.
Yeah.
Which is about typical for like a major 22 episode network TV show. And I'll take some time off. Rumor has it we're coming back for our 7th season. I don't know if it'll be the last season, but we're definitely, from day 1 of season 6, there was talk of season 7. So I don't know if maybe that was part of the deal with Spader, because James Spader is basically the executive producer on the show. So as he can do the show until he's like 99 years old. But so I'm hoping that it'll just keep going and I could retire off the show, but that probably won't happen. So yeah, long story short.
Set painting? What do you call it?
Scenic painting, yes.
Scenic painting.
Yes, I paint sets. So for those that don't know, I'm not a scenic designer. Everybody seems to get that wrong. No offense to anybody that has said that. And basically, like the carpenters will go in, they'll build walls and put door frames together and windows and whatever it is that the designer wants. The grip department will put up everything, and then the scenic painters come in and we paint the sets. So it could be an apartment set, it could be an alleyway set, it could be a sex chamber set, which we've done.
What the fuck?
Oh, our show is bad.
I haven't watched. I've never actually watched an episode of The Blacklist.
It's a really good show. And
I've heard honestly, good things.
Yeah, Spader. I mean, it's tough because you watch it and you're just transfixed by Spader. And when he's not on the show or in the scene, you're just kind of wandering. It's like Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight. I'll watch The Dark Knight, and every scene that he's in, I'm just staring at the screen. And when it's Christian Bale, I'm just like playing my phone, or I don't even pay attention to him. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Spader sells the show, and he's hilarious. There was the first episode this season, not to spoil anything, there was a bank robbery, and Spader's character was in the bank, and he was in the middle of trying to rob the bank as there was another robbery, and then he starts talking condescending to the new bank, like, if you're going to rob a bank, that's not the way to do it. And then he robs the bank robbers. I mean, it was genius. It was genius writing.
I've heard nothing but good things.
Yeah, it's great, and it deserves its audience, and it's also a lot of fun working on something that people know and they love. I get stopped all over. People ask me, "Oh, I know you can't say anything, but can you tell me about this character?" And I'm like, "No, I can't. Sorry, you're gonna have to watch."
What's that like? Do you have to sign a non-disclosure or something?
I typically do, but for this show, I didn't sign anything. I don't know why. But
so now you could just spoil stuff, but then you could run the risk of getting fired.
Yeah, well, actually, there was a set recently. The episode didn't air, so I can't say what it was, but it was a big stunt scene. And somebody was filming it on their camera, and sure enough, like a minute after it shot, it was up on Facebook or YouTube, and an email went out from the producer saying no phones allowed when you're on set, blah blah blah. I don't know why I didn't sign anything, but like Men in Black 3, I signed. It was like a textbook I had to sign to work on that movie.
Oh, you worked on the Men in Black 3?
Yeah, I worked on the headquarters that they were in, the big white dome.
Yeah,
we shot that. They built that in Marcy Armory in Brooklyn, which is like an old National Guard armory that they left, and then now they just shoot movies in there. So yeah, I was on that. I was on Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. So I knew the whole story of both those movies while I was working on it.
Were you disappointed when they came out and they weren't as good as, or did you like those movies?
I liked the first one. I will always be a fan of Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker because of mostly because his look. And I think with the right writing, he could have pulled off the nerdy turning into the, macho. No, he's not really macho, but he could have pulled off the classic Spider-Man that we all grew up with. Because Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man was a little too quiet for me. Tom Holland is good. He feels like a real kid, but he just doesn't look like Peter Parker. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was always Andrew Garfield. So when part 2 came out, the costume was amazing, and it was cool to be like, oh, I worked on that for 6 weeks, or that airplane, or that whatever it was. And then you're watching the movie, and you're like, what the fuck
and then the movie gets completely shit on by the critics and fans and basically kills the franchise.
Pretty much. And it's crazy that it made like $700 million.
It still made a good amount of money, but everyone just blasted the film so much.
Yeah.
And they had such big ideas that they had to just shut everything down. And then luckily for Marvel or MCU fans, they were able to fold them in. Yeah. Fold in at least the character. I've always wondered this because, again, we have you on the show. I've talked to you in person. Yeah. But you wake up early. You always are saying that I have to wake up early. What's a typical day as a scenic painter on set?
It depends on the job you're doing. Typically,
how long are you there? Would be the first question.
How many hours a day do we work? Yeah. This job, most TV shows like this are running 8-hour days.
Okay, so that's normal 9 to 5. Just switch the hours a little bit, a little earlier. Okay, go ahead, Amon. What the typical day is like? I'm
trying to think, because the reason why I like the job is because there's no typical day. There's no sometimes sorry to my boss if he's listening, I doubt it. But yeah, you run on autopilot sometimes when you're just painting shit white or black or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. But typically I usually try to wake up at 5:15 in the morning. I'm out of my place by like 6, and then we start at 7, wrap it around 3. Sometimes we work 6 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon. Most of the industry is 10-hour days, sometimes 12-hour days, sometimes weekends. But I like I'm not making as much money as I could if I could freelance, but because I'm core crew with the paint department, I have steady work, which is amazing in our business. And I kind of don't want to trade that for something else where I'll make more money, but then it's over after 2 months. Because now I have I've had like 9 months of steady work, which is great. That's what you want when you're a freelancer. Mm-hmm. So, I'll deal with the 8-hour days by doing more of my artwork at home. And then I go at the end of the season and I do conventions and I do online sales. And now I've been doing a lot of commissions that are bringing in extra income for myself. So
when you're off work, you rely upon your art and the conventions and all that stuff to kind of help tide you over till the next time.
Yeah, pretty much.
You're back on set.
Pretty much. With this show, I've been very, very lucky because when it ends and we get picked up, I know when we're coming back. So I could either go find work or I could just wait and do conventions and use that money to sort of tide me over. That's kind of what I've been doing. There are sometimes, early on, I never had that luxury. So now I'm just sort of taking advantage of it. And then you don't want to overwork yourself because then you're burnt out by the time the job starts. And I've done that. And I went from America's Got Talent to this show called The Nick. And America's Got Talent was like 2.5 months. It was like boot camp. I mean, it was a lot of fun.
They needed scenic painters for America's Got Talent?
Yeah. A lot of those acts have a lot of sets.
Oh,
believe it or not. I said the same thing, but I made a shit ton of money, and it was in Manhattan at Radio City Music Hall. Yeah. And I never worked there, so it was really cool to be in a historical theater and in Midtown Manhattan. I could take the bus in. It was great. It was in the summer, and
Did you meet Simon Cowell?
No, he wasn't there. This was Howard Stern.
Oh.
The only one I met was Mel B. She was really cool.
Was she?
Yeah,
Spice
she was
Girl?
cool. Yeah, Spice Girl. She was cool. Heidi Klum is gorgeous in real life.
She's a smoke?
No,
as in a smoke show. Sorry. It's not asking if she smokes. I give no shits if she smokes.
Yeah. I don't know.
Heidi Klum was Tyra Banks there? I'm just Googling America's Got Talent because I don't watch those. I don't really watch those talent shows like American Idol or anything like that.
Yeah.
It was Tyra Banks there too?
No, it was Nick Cannon. Nick Cannon was the host. Yeah. I think Tyra came after.
Oh, yeah, I don't follow.
It was 3 seasons it was over here, so I worked 2 out of the 3 seasons it was on.
That's crazy. See, I never even knew that you were affiliated with these names of shows and movies and TV shows.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the list is endless. A lot of times you you get a job and you get called for something. Hey, you want to come work on this Netflix? Now it's all Netflix and Amazon and Hulu, and you don't know what the hell you're working on, but you go for a paycheck.
So you go, and then you don't know if it's going to be good or not until after it comes out.
No, and you don't even know if the show's going to be brought back. So being on this show has just been very...
A blessing, probably.
Yeah, just a blessing. There are other shows in New York that, like Law & Order has been going... Law & Order actually shoots upstairs from us. They're on season 20. Blue Bloods has been going for 9 seasons. They're in New York. There's a show called Bull, which has been going pretty strong. Saturday Night Live has been going for 30, 40 years now. So, I mean, there are a lot of hit TV shows that have like steady crews and stuff like that. So, I never experienced this before. I'm about 10 years into business, and this is 5 or 6 years out of those 9 years have been this, and I can't complain, man. I'm going to stick around with it for as long as I can.
That was going to be my next question. How long can this, not just the Blacklist, but how long can you just keep doing scenic sets? Can you do this forever? Is this something where you see old people even doing it?
There are. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I would like to retire sort of when I'm in like my 40s, 50s maybe.
Jeez, you're going to retire early.
Well, I mean, I got in when I was 30, and I think after 14 years you could take an early retirement. So we'll see.
Really? Holy fuck.
You can, but you don't get the full amount.
Oh, yeah.
Which kind of sucks.
So you're part of a union?
Yeah, part of a union.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I had no idea that this even existed. I knew that you were a part of it, but I had no idea that you were part of this union and that this, the way the work schedule was played out. None of this. I had no idea.
You know what though? A lot of people don't. And you have a lot of kids that graduate art school like myself, and we need a job. And I went for illustration. And I was going to be a comic artist. I probably said this on the Jock and Nerd show, but I'm going to say it again.
Say it again.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
Long story short, I was gearing up to be a comic book artist. I met with editors from DC. I had so many connections in the business, but then Marvel went bankrupt in the 90s. We all remember that. And I didn't take it. I didn't do it. And my parents didn't have a lot of money. We didn't have a lot of money, and I needed a job. I've always loved movies. Movies are what kept me drawing, like Bruce Lee movies, Godzilla movies, action movies, guys with big muscles, stuff that we all, grew up with, Stallone and Schwarzenegger. And I said, oh, wow, I'd love to work in movies too. So one day during senior year of FIT, I was sitting next to some friends of mine, and my friend turned to the professor and said, oh, my friend works with props on Broadway, and he's part of this union. And he said, what do you know about that? And my teacher said, oh, well, I used to be a scenic painter, and I used to work on Broadway shows up in Connecticut at this shop. So from there, I overheard her talking about it. And I said, wait, you work on movies and there's a union and you paint? And that's kind of how I found out about it. And then the next day, a bunch of us went down to the union hall to get information about it. And they gave us all the info. And I said, well, I'm going to make a go of this because I want to work on movies. I want to use my artistic abilities and work on sets. And right before I graduated, I was working at this toy store in the West Village. Mm-hmm. And a friend of mine was a martial artist. He did wushu. So I was hanging out with a lot of these guys that were wushu kung fu performers that went on to do some of the Marvel shows, like the guy that choreographs Daredevil and Deadpool. And I think, what was the other one? I think one of the X-Men films outside of Deadpool he was doing. His name is Phil. He was a regular, just a New York kung fu guy, and he used to go and perform and do shows and stuff. And now he's moved on to doing Hollywood movies. It's crazy just to now that I'm thinking about it.
Philip Silvera?
Yeah, Phil Silvera, really nice guy. Yeah, my friend
IMDb'd the guy.
Yeah, my friend George Creighton, he moved out to California to do stunt work. So he was, his father was on the Kung Fu school in Queens. But long story short, he knew a guy that worked at the Juilliard school. And one night we were out drinking, and I was telling this guy, George, about, I want to be a scenic artist. I don't know how to do it. And he goes, oh, go talk to this guy over here. So this guy over here works at the Juilliard school. He's a stage manager. And I went up to him drunkenly and said, I want to be a scenic artist. And he goes, holy shit, okay. He's like, call this person at the Juilliard. He's like, they have a scenic art intern program. I said, okay, cool. So I called her, and it was like 2 weeks before the deadline of applications. And I went in, and I had no experience being a scenic artist, but I wanted to do it. and I beat out 50 other applicants from around the world because of how bad I wanted to do it. The boss that was there, when she met me, she's like, I really want him.
You just expressed to her that this was it. This was what you wanted to do.
Yeah. And
how does she know that you really wanted it?
I mean, I was truthful. I was honest. I put I bare my heart and soul with stuff like that I'm passionate about. And I need
I can't see you ever lying, knowing you in real life.
Oh no, my wife says I'm the worst liar. I can't. I've had people I work with saying, "Oh, Bellotti, you're a terrible liar," and I'm like, "Well, yeah, I'm too honest." But I won them over. I'm not, I can't complain. It's been working out for me. I've been getting steady work since I got into business. So, people like me for whatever reasons.
Well, I think people like you because you're a genuine dude.
Yeah, I hear that a lot, and I don't like disingenuous people. Like I despise them. Like guys like Alexander Rodriguez, the baseball player. Anytime he would speak, I'd just cringe. When I found out that he was coming to New York, my heart sank. I was like, no, I don't want this guy in New York.
You just think he's well, yeah. I mean, you just think he's disingenuous, huh?
Oh yeah,
big with anything time. He says. I mean, he's very concerned about his image at all times and.
Yeah.
How he's portrayed. And I mean, he definitely has an image that he likes to keep up.
Yeah. And there are artists that I've met that I won't name, but I know them and they're just the most, they illustrate the most bullshit things and think that they're great. And you could tell the passion's not there. And every time I do, when I do my posters and I go to these shows, people will come up to me and say, you really love this stuff, don't you? I said, yeah, a little bit. And they're like, no, I could see the love. So I'm very lucky that I can express myself and people pick up on it. Like they notice it, they see it, they feel it. That's all I want. And people say, oh, I'm so comfortable around you and I like working with you. You make me laugh, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's great. I'm just honest, I'm just an honest guy and I call it as I see it. But me and my brother joke, we're not perfect, but we're like 99% perfect.
You're pretty close. You're a stud, man. Well, speaking of being honest, I got to be honest with you. The Game of Death piece that you put out.
Yeah,
I bought the shirt, man.
Thank you.
And I can't judge art all that well. I can tell when it's good, but I really can't tell if it's bad unless it's awful.
Yeah.
But the Game of Death thing, man, that's fucking dope, man.
Thank you.
I bought it with the yellow background. So I bought that shirt.
Perfect.
And then I bought the Monster Zero one that you put out a long time ago.
Oh,
right?
Cool. Yeah.
With I think a gray or a black background.
Nice. Yeah, but, I left that game. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead. Talk about the Game of Death shirt. Or the piece that's now on a shirt.
Yeah. That's funny because as a kid I hated Game of Death because it was just terrible. And it's, for those that don't know, Game of Death is Bruce Lee's last film. And he stopped.
It's the one where he fights Chuck Norris, right?
No, it's when he fights. No, that's Return of the Dragon. This is
that? Oh, that's Return of the Dragon.
That's Return of the Dragon. Yeah.
Fuck me. What's Game of Death? Is which one? Is that which one's Game of Death?
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
There we go. Yeah. Okay.
The yellow tracksuit, the iconic, most famous Bruce Lee look.
Yes.
So
I've never actually watched the full Game of Death either.
Oh, it's terrible. No, and nobody has. But Game of Death, basically, he shot about 45 minutes of it, edited it. He did the editing. He did dialogue, some music. And then they approached him about doing Enter the Dragon in the States. And he was like, well, this is my chance. I have to take it. I'll come back to Game of Death. But he died after he finished Enter the Dragon and never finished it. So it was just after he died in 1978, they released it, but they brought in a stunt double to play Bruce Lee, and it was terrible. I remember reading that. Yeah, I just saw it in the theater along with Enter the Dragon. It was part of like a double feature, and it was unintentionally hilarious. There's one scene where he's sitting in a makeup chair, and the reflection in a mirror is a cardboard cutout of Bruce Lee's face, like taped on to the mirror. It's you have to watch it. I'll send you the picture of it.
Yeah, I have to throw that. I think I remember seeing that online at one point.
You watch it, and then there's a scene in the movie where he gets shot and they fake his death, and they're showing the actual footage of Bruce Lee's funeral, and it's just so morose and weird and just weird. I don't want to see Bruce Lee's death. Like, he's in a coffin and it's really him.
Oh, weird.
And then the end is basically the original, like half. They cut down that 45 minutes to like 25 minutes of the original Bruce Lee footage. And he comes in, and you could tell it's Bruce Lee. He's got the charisma, the moves, all that stuff. So for a long time, I didn't like it. And then this documentary came out called Bruce Lee is a Warrior's Journey. And it was a 2-hour movie documentary about Bruce Lee's Game of Death, how he developed it and how he was working on the script and the music and how he was going to finish it. And this last half of the movie was the original 45 minutes of footage that he shot, and they restored it with new dialogue. And apparently it was lost for a long time. And I don't know exactly how they found it. There was a book that came out with it I never bought. So I watched this thing, and I was mesmerized, Tony. I couldn't take my eyes off it. And those fight scenes, like his fights, that's my favorite Bruce Lee movie. That 45 minutes is like my favorite Bruce Lee movie. And basically the fight scenes were so butchered and edited down for that original release that this movie looks nothing like it. So yeah, there was one time I was at the gym on a treadmill, and I was like, all right, I'm going to just do this like 10 minutes on a treadmill and go home. That came on the TV. I was there for another 2.5 hours watching that on the treadmill. On the treadmill. I was just like, oh my God, I love Game of Death. And I became obsessed with that yellow tracksuit look. I said, this is amazing. And like there were other characters in the movie that were never shown. And I've had this idea of doing a Bruce Lee poster. I want to say 3 years. That poster was about 3 years in my head, just gestating. I don't even know.
Gestating, yeah. That would be correct. Yeah. When you say gestating, though, I think the first thing I think of is the alien embryo inside someone's stomach gestating as it anticipates its departure by
that's
bursting
exactly
through your chest in the alien movies. But yes, gestating would also apply in this sense.
Yes. So
continue.
Yeah, no, pretty much. And then it just exploded. But I always had this thing about doing portraits. I was never good at it as a kid, or maybe I just didn't try hard, because I was always drawing comic book stuff, and I kind of drew like pinup girls, but I just drew them how I sort of interpreted them, but not exactly how they looked. And then I started doing those Godzilla posters, which, have been really very successful for me.
I love those.
Oh, thank you.
Real quick, what is the, do you know the origin behind that yellow tracksuit? Why he's wearing that? He just chose that color, or because it's so distinct. I mean, it's an iconic suit, but it's so loud.
Yeah, actually, a few things about that suit that I know of.
Okay,
there was a comic book documentary about with Joe Quesada, was one of the guys talking about comics and stuff. And he says, you ever see the movie Kill Bill? You know that tracksuit that she's wearing? That's from comics. That was inspired by comic books. And I wanted to reach in the screen I'm like, Joe, I love your art, man, but shut the fuck up right now. You don't know. I mean, how fucking blind are you that you can't, like, that's Bruce Lee. The yellow tracksuit is Bruce Lee. If you wear that, it's automatically Bruce Lee. I don't give a shit what you say.
Right.
As far as I know, the yellow tracksuit it's like a single piece outfit, and it's skin tight, and it's supposed to symbolize the fluid martial artist, not tied down to anything. If you notice the other guys, like Dan Inosanto, the guy with the red headband, he's dressed like a Filipino stick fighter. And
Kali,
Kali, and Jihan Zoi, who is wearing a white Hapkido outfit. And Bruce is wearing something nondescript. And it's fluid and has movement, and it's like water. It's basically, Game of Death was basically his philosophy on film, which is what makes it so tragic that he never finished it, because it was every message that he ever had about martial arts and his philosophy on life and how to approach life.
Well, he was one of the first guys, I'm not sure if he was the first, but he was one of the first guys that didn't follow traditional martial arts, and a lot of the masters or senseis or whatever you call them in the traditional martial arts kind of looked down upon him because he wasn't following kung fu or karate. He was taking bits and pieces from everything. So even the UFC sometimes considers him as the founder of mixed martial arts.
Oh no, they do. Dana White has said, he said, I got into this because of Bruce Lee, and he goes, he was the first MMA fighter, and it's 100%. He's 100% right. But with Game of Death, basically with this poster, what I wanted to say was, this was the movie that Bruce was going to make if he didn't die, with these characters, and it had this energy and this sort of fluidity about it. And Like I said, I just wasn't good at drawing portraits until the Godzilla stuff. And then I sort of built my confidence up where I said, I want to get much better before I throw my hat into the Bruce Lee ring. And I got to say, since I started sharing it on social media, it's been great. Like, it blew up faster than most of my Godzilla posters. And I think that's because Bruce Lee has a wider audience, because everybody loves Bruce Lee.
That's the thing, was when you compare, not that Godzilla sucks, because we both like him, but Godzilla in a lot of, most circles outside of the G fandom, considered a joke.
Yeah,
and that's kind of changing with the American films, but for the most part, he kind of a joke, kind of silly.
Yeah,
everybody and their fucking mother likes and loves Bruce Lee, or knows Bruce Lee, and has some sort of, and the fact that he lived such a short life also just adds to the allure of his impact on the world.
Oh,
so
without a doubt.
Yeah, so I think there's just mystique around Bruce Lee. So I'm not surprised that when you release a Bruce Lee piece, that's going to blow up.
Yeah, I can't tell you like the love I got and the likes. Not that like, you know, I do it. Yeah, obviously we all do it for the likes. If you're sharing stuff on social media,
you don't need to be ashamed of saying that. You do stuff to get other people to like it.
Exactly.
Obviously, you do it first for your own benefit, but if other people like it, that's an added bonus. You should be proud of that.
Exactly. No, exactly. And like, it got shared more than most pieces I've done. And this one guy was like, "Oh my God, I want to share this on my page and give me all your information." And he was a really cool. Give me your social security number. I was like, "Okay." No, I didn't do that. Yeah, sure, take it. Anything for Bruce.
You're African prince wanting to give me some money.
Yeah, he's Nigerian. He's got to be on the level. Oh my God! Tell my wife, she divorces me. Oh my God, where you going?
What have you done?
Yeah. But no, the funny story. There was this war-torn country in Eastern Europe somewhere. I don't know. I can't remember what country it was, but there was a civil war.
Okay.
And there was.
Where's this going?
You'll see. And it's great because I was like, "Holy shit!" And I think Shannon Lee said this on her podcast. Shannon Lee's Bruce Lee's daughter. She's got the Bruce Lee podcast. And she said that there was this country and the people loved Bruce Lee so much that the only thing that both sides of the Civil War agreed to was leaving up the Bruce Lee statue. That was the only thing that they were agreed upon. And I said, that speaks to the testament of his character. So, to sort of get the attention. And then what made it really great, I sent it to the Bruce Lee Foundation. I said, "Hey, I'd love to sell this poster. What can we do with it? What can I do? I love to work with you guys." I haven't heard anything back, and I'm sure they get a million requests a minute.
Yeah.
But one of the best things that happened with this was on Instagram. Again, I got a lot of likes on Instagram, but Dan Inosanto, the guy that wears the red headband and the Kali expert, his daughter is on Instagram, and she wrote in all caps, "Oh my God, I love this." And I was like, holy shit. His daughter is an active martial artist. She's in the martial art world. She trained the actress, what's her name, from Battle Angel Alita in the martial arts. So she is like a legit martial artist. She's a martial art fan. She embodies the martial arts. So it was almost more special to me that she said that than like Shannon Lee in a way, because she, like I said, she's martial arts, and it's like, oh my God, like she likes this. And I sent it to her as a message, "Hey, feel free to share. I love drawing your dad. He was a lot of fun to draw." So that was like the nicest thing to happen. And, I've had the Godzilla guys buy my shirts, like Ken Satsuma, the guy that played Godzilla in the 90s. He bought some of my shirts, and I'm like, yeah, that's cool, But like having Dan Inosanto's daughter, like for me, it was just everything. I was like, oh, it was worth it. It was so worth it to have that,
That's awesome, man. I mean, why do you, what made you obsessed with Bruce Lee?
I guess something I never told on the show was when I was younger, I was fat. I was overweight. People sort of made fun of me. I never had girlfriends.
Well, now but let's give some context. So now you're what? You're 6'4", probably?
6'2".
6'2".
Yeah.
And you're pretty, I mean, you're not built, but you're in good shape.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, I had to basically go fight an uphill battle, but I started I started running when I was in my 20s, and I dropped all the weight. So that sort of was like a late bloomer. So like from 23 on has been amazing. But
how big were you?
I guess at my peak, I was close to 300 pounds. And that's,
shit.
It's terrible. When you're a kid and you're that fat, it's a pain and a wound that stays with you the rest of your life. And it everything in your life is touched upon it. So I sort of became a little reclusive. I had friends, but not a lot of friends. I did stuff, but I didn't do a lot of stuff. Never had the girlfriend. So Bruce Lee was someone I could look up to that beat up the bullies, that would say stuff to me, or, he could defend himself. So I became obsessed with, I kind of always had Bruce Lee movies and Kung Fu movies on when I was a kid. Same thing with Godzilla movies, obviously. But Bruce Lee
was
just
immersed in Asian culture as a Italian kid in New York.
Yeah, no, it's Humphrey was 100% right when he said that, about me. It's weird because all my friends were into Star Wars, and I was like, fuck that. I want for me, Kung Fu movies and Godzilla movies are the source of Star Wars, which a lot of people don't know. I mean, all those early Star Wars movies are from Kurosawa movies and early Toho sci-fi movies and Kung Fu movies. I mean, Obi-Wan is dressed like a samurai, like, hello. But so I went right to the source, like in The Matrix, right to the, the land of light, basically. But yeah, Bruce Lee was, he spoke to me. He spoke to my low self-esteem and being self-conscious and said, like, you don't have to take this shit. You can fight back. You could, he had like this coolness about him and he could stand up for himself and nobody was fucking with him. And if they did, you watch out. So that's kind of where it started. And Bruce Lee was always in my life. I took Jeet Kune Do when I was a kid.
You did?
Yeah. Filipino Eskrima. I still have the sticks in my parents' garage.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And I think the guy I learned from was sort of a descendant of studying under Dan Inosanto, which is even cooler. And
did you learn the 1-inch punch?
Yeah, we did.
We did
actually. Yeah, yeah, we learned that.
You sent someone flying off a 1-inch punch?
No. But I was really good at Muay Thai. I was doing MMA before that shit was even. I'm talking
You're doing Muay Thai too?
Yeah, we did Muay Thai. We did boxing.
Well, that all makes sense because Jeet Kune Do is a hybrid.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's a hybrid martial art.
Yeah,
we were doing Chisao, the sticky hands. So I was doing this.
How old were you doing this?
I was like 13, 14 years old. I was young.
So 12. You were a big kid, but if anyone fucked with you, you probably you could whoop their ass.
Yeah, I learned how to do a Muay Thai, like roundhouse kicks. I had really
300 pounds.
Well, I was starting to.
You were starting to lose weight.
I was starting to, yeah.
Okay.
But I would like kick the bag, and it'd be like, "Holy shit, this guy's got strength in his legs." But I was 12. This was like 92, 93.
Yeah.
And UFC was in its infancy, so.
Oh, UFC wasn't even around. I mean, there was MMA, but it's not in the form that it is today.
Well, back then it was like Royce Gracie, like it was the styles. Now it's just one style.
Right.
So this is way before that. So that's why I just sort of laugh at all this stuff. Because it's like, well, I've been doing this before it was cool. Like every other fucking guy that says that.
You're that fucking old fart that's telling everybody you were on it before anyone else.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, fuck you.
Yeah, fuck this. So it's the truth. I mean, it's the truth. Those old guys, they're speaking from a place of truth for the most part.
I always wonder if how big Bruce Lee would have gotten if he, stayed alive.
I think about that, and I just read I read a lot of stuff on Bruce, and I just read a really good book on Bruce Lee called Bruce Lee: A Life, and it's very controversial. So read it at your
Bruce Lee. What's it called?
Bruce Lee: A Life.
A Life. Okay.
Written by Matthew Polly, and it's like I said, read it at your own risk because it reveals the very human side of Bruce Lee that a lot of people don't get. And I was always kind of like, well, I've read a lot of his books as a kid, but it was always like the legend. But it's like, well, did he take a shit? Like, was he a fucking human
he's
being?
A man, right?
He's a man with faults like the rest of us, And where was I going with this? What were we saying?
We were talking. I'd asked. I didn't ask. I just speculated what it would have been like if he would have stayed alive.
Oh yeah.
How big he would have gotten, or because before you continue, I kind of think not to sound morbid, but the death kind of helped him in terms of his overall popularity. Like it just made him a legend. Because you didn't get, at some point in and maybe not in the 70s or 80s, but you see it now all the time. At some point, someone being human, their flaws just come out at some point. There's holes that get poked in the facade.
Yeah, and he was an adulterer. He had a few mistresses, and that would have came out. And his last mistress that they found him in her apartment, they silenced her basically. They said, "Don't talk about this," and she was in hiding up until like last year when she finally came out with it. But I've listened to podcasts with Linda Lee Caldwell, his wife, on it, and she said Bruce was in a lot of pain from his back injury. That every day on set was like excruciating. He did a lot of cupping for his back muscle. He always massages.
How did he hurt his back?
He was doing good mornings without warming up.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. And
you definitely need to warm up to him before you do a good morning.
Yeah. And he said something popped, and he didn't think much of it. And then like a day later, he couldn't walk. And they said
the only reason I know what a good morning is because I joined a CrossFit. By the way, I never used to even do good mornings.
I won't do them. I can't jeopardize my job. That's very physical because I want to do a good morning when I could do 3 other exercises that are, not as good, but it'll get the job done. But,
Got it. So he was in a shit ton of pain.
He was in a lot of pain, and Linda Lee said that he would have moved more towards producing, and I think ultimately he wanted to own his own production studio because he felt to this day, Asians weren't getting the roles that they should be getting, and they're getting looked over and passed over. So he was a prophet in many ways because he wasn't wrong. And he would tell Brandon when he was a kid, he said, be an actor, but be a producer, make your own movies because these guys will not cast you. So I think that's where he would have went. If he ended up in like these Steven Seagal movies with DMX, that would have been the most tragic thing.
Oh, that would have sucked.
It would have been terrible. Or like Muhammad Ali, like when he was just getting punched around in the ring towards the end of his career. It's just like, just stop. Please stop.
Yeah, there's always the point where you see your idol or your legend, whether it be in sport or movie, and they take a role or, as Muhammad Ali, they take a fight. Yeah, and you're just going, oh no, that's not how I wanted to remember you.
Yeah,
I don't think it necessarily taints it, but it just it leaves it's like, oh man, that's not what or like Michael Jordan on the Wizards. It's just like, oh
god,
oh, no.
or when Tina Martinez left the Yankees and joined the Devil Rays at the time, I was like,
oh my gosh, I remember that.
But the Cardinals, he went to I think the Cardinals and the Devil Rays. I was like, oh Tina, what are you doing? Or. Mm-hmm. Whenever the Yankees got any big agent in the mid-2000s, it was like, oh, what are you guys doing here? Get out of here. Jesus, Randy Johnson.
So you don't know, who knows how big he would have gotten, huh? But he probably would have been a big influence as far as producing, for sure. Yeah.
I think his death, the biggest thing it did, the more I read about it, I think his death set back Chinese actors getting cast in major roles. I think if he was alive, he would have seen to the creation of that because he was a creator. He was creating shit left and right with his martial arts, his philosophy. That would have been his crowning achievement, was basically funding movies with Chinese leads in Hollywood because he had the clout at that point. So that's kind of tragic that like now in 2019, it's funny because again, when I was a kid, there was no Chinese people in movies, but it's the truth. Because, now they're fighting for, blacks and Latinos and stuff in movies. But I've always said, like, the Chinese have been getting ignored in these films for years. And I'm so sick of I love Keanu Reeves. Point Break is one of my guilty pleasures. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. But I don't want to see him doing Kung Fu. I want to see Donnie Yen in a major Hollywood movie as a lead doing Kung Fu. Right. If that's what the role calls for. Like, get the guys that really do it.
He was in Rogue One.
He was the best part of Rogue One, in my opinion.
You loved him in Rogue One. I remember when we talked about it.
Yeah, he was like a revelation. It's like, see, this is what you people have been missing. But,
in his role, he was he didn't have a ton to do, but just the lines and that he had, I was enamored with him just in the short time that he was on screen for that film. I thought he was the best. Yeah, like you, I think he was one of the more intriguing parts. Yeah,
and he's got a lot of charisma. He's got a lot of talent. Donnie Yen is probably my favorite right now because I still follow a lot of this stuff.
Yeah,
I notice it's going in two different directions. Donnie Yen and the Hong Kong stuff tends to be a little more bloodless, and Donnie Yen is starting to bring in He's been bringing in MMA type of moves like takedowns and arm bars and stuff in his movies, and he's really innovating. He's being very innovative with a lot of the new choreography. Mm-hmm. And then you have this subgenre of these Indonesian films like The Raid 2, what's the other one? They Come at Night. And they're very, very violent. They're very choreographed and they're very bloody and dark and just really dark.
I remember watching, because I've never fully watched The Raid either. Mm-hmm. Ong Bak, right? He's in it?
No, that's Tony Jaa. That's the other...
Tony Jaa.
That's a Thai film, yeah.
But are those similar to The Raid?
Well, now they're all in the same movies together.
Okay.
There's a movie coming out called Triple Threat, which is Tony Jaa from Ong Bak and Iko Kuai from the Raid movies, and then this guy from China, Tiger Chen.
Okay.
So now
I don't mean to mix them all up. As being an Asian, I guess I should be better at this, but I remember watching The Raid.
Yeah.
Watching those fight scenes, and it's very well done, but there is a darker bloodiness to it than you would see in some of the other Hong Kong stuff, for sure.
Yeah, very dark, and it's hard to watch.
At times it's a bit difficult to watch.
Right.
It's to be admired, but it's definitely.
Oh my God,
jeez.
Yeah, the first Raid. I mean, I love that movie. And part 2 I think is even better story wise and the fights. But the thing with those guys, like Tony Jaa especially and Iko, is that they don't got that acting ability. They don't got the charisma that Bruce does, or Jackie, or Donnie Yen, or any of these guys. That's what they're missing. They're really good technically, but you put them in front of the camera and that's it. They're stale. Even Van Damme. Van Damme had some charisma, because I was watching Death Warrant last night and he's a good looking guy. I'll say that. You can't take your eyes off the guy. It's, but he has that at least.
Right.
But, it's like when you watch, I don't watch wrestling, and I know you guys have talked about it. And
you're talking about pro wrestling?
Pro wrestling, yeah. Like wrestling.
I don't watch it all that much anymore. I don't really watch it anymore.
Well, it's terrible. But in the 90s, it was the shit, because you had guys like Shawn Michaels who could do these amazing moves, but they had so much charisma, and you put them in front of the mic and they would sell it. And it was amazing. And you need, to do these martial arts films, you need that, I think.
Oh, no. I mean, the thing is, you can be great in terms of your fight choreography, but to really, at least to make it over here,
right?
I think there's got to be some sort of magnetism, because there is already, stereotypes with Asians from the get-go.
Right.
So if you can't overcome that stereotype of just being a martial artist, then you really don't have, you're not going to be a lead over here.
Right. Right. And, everybody wants, they tried to make Jackie Chan the next Bruce Lee. And in a lot of respects, he was, because he was like, Bruce kicks high, I kick low. Bruce beats people up, I get beaten up. And he's amazing at it. And you should listen to his story about his last story about Bruce Lee. I won't say anything, but it's just, you need to watch it because it's amazing.
Okay.
But I think he was
so goofy.
He was goofy, but he was huge. He was the biggest star in the world.
He was awesome. I don't think of him in the same light as Bruce Lee.
Right.
In terms of his impact, like he was definitely huge. Bruce Lee though had the swagger and the charisma, whereas Jackie Chan also had charisma, but it was that goofball. He was goofball. Yeah.
Jackie was a better performer than Bruce. Bruce Lee was the real deal. I'm not saying that if you got into a street fight with Jackie, the guy couldn't defend himself, because I'm pretty sure he could. But Bruce Lee was the martial arts. Jackie, like I said, was a performer, an actor, stunt guy. But you know what? Jackie's fight scenes are some of my favorite fight scenes ever in Hong Kong movies. He revolutionized. I can't talk today. Oh my God.
I make you nervous?
No, I had this big bowl of ramen earlier that I'm just like, we're crashing from all the carbs here. Holy shit. So, and I'm really hot right now. Like, I'm burning up. I run hot. Anyway,
what the fuck are we talking about?
I don't know anymore. It's getting fucking weird. No, so like Jackie's movies, like Police Story, Meals on Wheels, Drunken Master 2, my personal favorite Jackie Chan movie. Those fight scenes are revolutionized fight choreography. So Tony Jaa, the guys from the Raid, that all came from Jackie Chan. Mm-hmm. That didn't come from, I mean, it all sort of came from Bruce, but there were martial arts movies before Bruce, guys like Alexander Fusheng and, what the fuck's his name? The guy, the one-armed swordsman. I can't remember. No one fucking knows who he is anyway. Who gives a shit? Can't remember his name. But yeah, so there was, these movies have been around since the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. Bruce brought it into the spotlight, and it was like, we're here to stay. And then Jackie took it and ran with it. And then when Jackie sort of petered out, like in the 90s, I would say.
Well, but then he made Rush Hour with Chris Tucker, which catapulted him to a new stratosphere in terms of comedy. I love the Rush Hour films.
Oh, they're hilarious. Part 2 is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's so stupid. It's just, they're so funny.
The chemistry those two had was amazing. Yeah.
But the martial art, the Hollywood martial art film went dormant, especially after Van Damme got into drugs and now with the comic movies, that's what makes John Wick such a breath of fresh air, because he brings back that old, martial art / Hong Kong action gunplay movies that's another thing that I love is like John Woo movies. And I know I just complained about Keanu Reeves, but it's nice to see like
it's nice to see an aspect of what you liked in the past coming back.
Yes, with like practical effects and, how much I love these superhero movies. I've been waiting my whole life for these movies, but some of these fight scenes, man, Jason Statham said it once. He said the fight scenes are terrible, and I agree with him. Outside of the Captain America movies and whatever the Russos touch, they're kind of shitty if you think about it.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes they. I mean, I read this or I saw this article the other day. It might have been yesterday, where Marvel kind of actually focuses more on the characters,
right?
And the action scenes are just kind of okay. We have to do this, but their real focus is on making all the character scenes really interesting. So sometimes those action scenes kind of take a back seat to the character stuff they're putting in, and it shows.
It shows. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, I'm as big an MCU fan as anybody, but I would definitely agree that some of those action scenes definitely could be improved, especially when you're dealing with the power sets and the characters that they're dealing with. You know,
right.
These things should always be super spectacular and super well choreographed.
Right. Well, the fight choreography in Daredevil from Phil Silvera, that hallway fight, which is, all right, it's a lot like The Raid, but a lot of people haven't seen The Raid. So that fight scene is one of the best Marvel fight scenes. That and the hallway fight with the Punisher in season 2 of Daredevil.
Did you watch the hallway fight or the hospital fight in season 3?
No, we have to catch up.
That.
We got to do that in Punisher, but that all comes from The Raid.
You and your wife?
Yeah, because we.
It's like we.
Yeah, like I'm Venom. Yeah, me and you. Let's do it. I would totally do it. I would totally watch it with you. You kidding me?
I'll fly to New York right now and we'll watch it.
Yeah, I'll fly to Chicago.
Yeah, you have to see that. Daredevil season 3 is really good. You have to check it out.
I know. I have to watch it. I'm bummed out that they canceled it, but I'm hoping it goes to Hulu or something. Which
I
is
think it'll eventually go to Hulu.
Yeah, I think it's like the biggest open secret ever, that whole cancellation thing. But
what did you think of? Were you a Jet Li guy?
I was, but Jet Li. I love Fist of Legend. It's basically a remake of Bruce Lee's A Chinese Connection. Mm-hmm. I thought that was good, and the thing with Jet is that he does a lot of wire work, and I'm not a big fan of the wire work. Like, everybody was creaming their pants over Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Like,
right.
Oh, the choreo. I'm like, guys, come on, man. I was watching Yun Wu Ping do that shit in the 80s, growing up, or what's his name? I probably going to mispronounce his name, but Ching Su Ting, I think his name is. He did this movie called Duel to the Death, and that movie inspired every fucking anime that involves ninjas or samurai. If you watch Duel to the Death, which came out, I think, in the early 80s, mm-hmm. and you watch Ninja Scroll, the most famous, like, ninja anime of all time, it's just like the same fucking movie. So those guys were doing it, like, way before Crouching Tiger. So when people were, like I said, jerking off over that, I was like, guys, it's Chow Yun-fat. Come on, he's just an actor. He doesn't do this shit. So Jet Li kind of, like, Once Upon a Time in America, or like his big movies, like he plays the Chinese hero of Wong Fei Hung, which is kind of like a Billy the Kid sort of character, but a more benevolent character than Billy the Kid. But it's all wire work. Like Iron Monkey was another one. I think was Donnie Yen.
Well, my first Jet Li experience, because I never grew up watching the Hong Kong martial arts film. So my first Jet Li experience was watching him as the bad guy in Lethal Weapon 4.
Oh, he was great, though.
He was fantastic. I was just thinking to myself as I was watching that film, holy fuck, this little guy is the scariest motherfucker I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I want that part when they stick the fucking rod through him and he's still fighting both Danny Glover and Mel Gibson.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh my God, this guy's fucking insane. Or when he's playing with, like, I don't know if it's a rosary. I don't think it's a rosary. He's playing with those Chinese beads, but then he'll come up behind you and strangle you. I was like, the charisma on this motherfucker to be menacing. I always thought he was better. I thought whenever I would see the films where he was a hero, I would always think to myself, I kind of like him better as a bad guy.
Yeah.
I don't know if he seems like he's the hero in most of the films.
Yeah, I mean that's what he banks everything on. Like Jackie Chan never played a villain because the audience wouldn't accept it.
Right.
So Jet Li I like, but I don't love him. Like it's like Bruce, Jackie, Donnie Yen are like my 3 ones. Sammo Hung I like probably more than Jet Li.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch War?
With Lee and Statham?
Yeah, him and Statham.
I never saw that movie.
Never saw that movie?
No.
I remember I only watched it once. I mean, I was highly entertained. The story itself isn't great. But just the fact that Statham and Jet Li were in a film together, I creamed my pants a little bit.
No, that's awesome. I mean, I still love The Expendables. A lot of people hate it, but I'll watch the first 2 over and over.
What did you think of, did you ever see the movie with Jet Li and Jackie Chan together?
No, I kind of, like I said,
Forbidden Kingdom.
Yeah, I don't even bother with the.
It was unfortunate that was the film that they finally got those 2 actors together.
Yeah, it was like
a silly film.
Yeah, it was like getting Stallone and Schwarzenegger together, and by that time it was Expendables, and it's like
even Expendables knew what it was getting into.
Right.
Forbidden Kingdom's about this dragon and this like goofy warlord. It's not even. It's too goofy.
Yeah.
It's a strange film. I don't know why that they chose the film to get those two together to be a goofball fest.
I don't know. I guess I saw parts of it and I was like, I can't do this. They're out of their prime. I kind of like,
Yeah, that's the thing too, is we caught both Jet Li and Jackie Chan towards the end of their runs anyways. So You're not seeing prime, especially Jackie, you're not seeing prime Jackie Chan, even though he's fucking great in Rush Hour, you're not seeing the best of the best.
No, you're not. He did all those moves in Police Story anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like, But Sammo Hung, man, I don't know.
Sammo Hung?
Sammo Hung is... All right,
I gotta look him up.
There was the Seven Little Fortunes, which came out from the Peking Opera School in Hong Kong. Basically, Jackie Chan was an orphan. His parents were going to sell him because they had no money, and they literally gave him to the Peking Opera School. So they raised him there, and he met these other performers. There was 7 of them that ended up becoming famous. So it was Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung, Yun Bu, Yun Hua, and the rest. I can't remember their names, but you've seen them in Hong Kong movies and probably Hollywood films. And Jackie, Sammo, and Yun Bu went on to make movies together. So they did Wheels on Meals, they did Dragons Forever, they did Project A, Heart of the Dragon. And whenever the 3 of them were on screen together, it was lightning. It was lightning in a bottle. It was electric. And Sammo Hung is the fat guy. And if you think fat people can't move, this motherfucker can move.
Yeah, I'm watching some clips right now with Sammo Hung.
Oh, Sammo's amazing. And in Sammo, the 3 of them sort of went on their own. So Sammo, I think, has the most prolific career outside of the 3 of them because he's an amazing fight choreographer. He's an amazing director. He choreographed a lot of fight scenes that people in Hollywood have watched that don't realize it was him. And I'd say his 2 best movies are Eastern Condors and Pedicab Driver. And just watch those movies and you'll just see a master at work. Because that guy, he's like the full, I mean, he doesn't look good because he's a big fat dude.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's funny watching him fight because this looks like a guy that just drank way too many beers and now he's just moving around.
He's moving.
He's moving around as if he's Jackie Chan.
Yeah, exactly. So he's one of my personal favorites. And he and Donnie Yen did a movie together called SPL, which I think is called Killzone in the States. I'm not sure.
Is he old in this one? Because I think I'm watching the clip with Sammo Hung and Donnie Yen.
Yeah, he's got like a purple suit on.
Yes.
That fight scene, oh my God, one of my top 10 fight scenes. So that fight scene right there is when Donnie was throwing in a lot of MMA moves. And right there, you're meeting like 2 legends like coming together. And they're both doing what they do best. So Donnie like grabs him by the legs and takes him down.
I'm watching it, yeah.
Yeah, that fight scene's great. It's a little short, but it's, oh my God. I just cream my pants.
Do you like Hong Kong cinema more than the Godzilla stuff and the kaiju stuff?
That's a good question. The
way you're talking about this, I mean, you're super excited.
Yeah, when I was a teenager is when I really got into a lot of the Hong Kong stuff more. So I would go into Chinatown in New York and buy all the bootlegs and the VHS from China. And that was around 97. So that's when I discovered John Woo. And that's when I decided I wanted to work in movies because of those films. Because Godzilla, I mean, you look at those movies and you're like, well, it's like special effects and they don't really do it anymore. But the Hong Kong films, you're like, this is stuff that they still make.
Right.
So that was sort of what got me into working in films. That sort of planted the seed where I wanted to be a film director. I wanted to make my own action movies. I mean, it was, stuff that, and then like when I got into the business and found out what went into directing, I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. Like I just want to eat the sausage. I don't want to know how it's made, basically. So I have a lot of love, and I'm also a drummer too. So a lot of people don't know that about me. I was if I didn't pursue a career in the arts, I would have been a drummer for
Really?
Yeah. I was that into music when I was in my 20s. Yeah. My dad was a drummer. He used to play with a lot of bands, nothing major. And then he had like this Ringo Starr drum set, left it in the garage, and then I would just go play Metallica songs on it. So I got really into like metal drumming and rock drumming and alternative stuff like that. So
you're just an all-around creator, man.
Yeah. Yeah. But when you get older, it sort of sucks because, you get married or you move out or
right.
You got to rent to pay, whatever, and you gotta
let go of those.
You gotta let go
things, yeah.
And it sucks because you lose a part of yourself. And I think that's why there's a lot of really angry guys. I say guys because it's usually guys that have to give up a lot of the stuff that they love that makes them who they are. And there's nothing wrong with holding on to that stuff when you're an adult. You know, like I have my shelf full of Godzilla toys, and I go to conventions. And
I'm not married, but I think my theory on that is there's a lot of guys that just end up with girls or partners that don't understand or are not accepting of that portion of their life, or they feel like they need to hide it. I think all that stuff could be better if they had a person on the other side that was accepting of it.
Yeah, and even then, I mean that you know it. I don't want to turn into a relationship podcast, but
it can if you want it to.
No, I'm okay. I'm perfectly fine with that. But you know, it's a balance, and you have to sort of, you know, I work, I come home, you know, I try to spend time with my wife, I try to do my artwork. Sometimes something takes precedence over the other, and something else suffers, and it's a constant balancing act, and you have to do the best you can. The point is you can't lose it. You can't lose your grip on that, because that's what makes you who you are. You know, I'm an artist. That's what makes me who I am. Without that, I'm just a ball of nothing. You know, it's just matter floating in the galaxy.
Whenever I've dated girls, I've maybe not right off the bat, but eventually I let them in on the fact that I nerd out about Godzilla, and I usually have gotten pretty good reactions to it.
Yeah, the stigma is not as bad as it used to be.
No.
But,
and it's understandable because I can just go back to being a kid and saying that I liked it as a kid. I remember the first time I got into Godzilla, I was at Toys R Us with my aunts.
Right.
We were in the checkout line, so we'd already bought the toys I wanted.
Yeah.
And on the end cabinet was the whole 8 VHS of Godzilla versus the Sea Monster.
Okay.
So on the cover it was drawn, I believe.
Right.
It was a giant lobster, and then Godzilla shooting fire out of his mouth at the lobster. Mm-hmm. And I went to my aunts and I go, "Can we get that? I want to watch that." and from then on, and I think they hemmed and hawed for a little bit, and were thinking to themselves, or even telling me out loud, "I don't know if this is appropriate for you," because they I don't think they were all that familiar with Godzilla.
Right.
But they took the risk and bought it, and I was fucking stuck from there. So Godzilla versus the Sea Monster is my first ever Godzilla film.
But, you know, that's a lot of people's first. That and Megalon is a lot of people's first, yeah.
We got it. I mean, are you good on time?
I'm fine, yeah. I go all night, but, you know.
Because I can't have you on with me and we not nerd out about Godzilla for at least a little bit.
No, look, if you want to do another half hour, 45 minutes, it's fine with me.
Oh yeah, no, we're still going.
Oh, all right.
We got at least another half hour.
I'm good. I'm only getting hotter. I'm sweating more.
You getting bothered about this?
Getting bothered. There's no oxygen in this room because the window's closed. There's no fan. I'm dying. Let's go. Just keeping me awake.
Because every time I try to nerd out with you about Godzilla, Imran's there, and I love you, Imran, but Imran's not a Godzilla nerd.
He's a big Debbie Downer. Imran, I hate you. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, Imran is amazing. I love Imran.
His wild enthusiasm, it translates to everything. He just isn't a Godzilla guy.
And that's fine because he's a Spider-Man guy.
Right.
Spider-Man's another thing I love, but that's a whole other podcast.
So besides, let's take out the original. What's your favorite Godzilla film of all time?
Including the Showa, the Heisei, and the Millennium, and the Legendary.
Everything. But the OG you can't say because that's a classic.
And it's its own movie. It really is its own movie. Like that's like Schindler's List, which is terrible. Oh God, I always default to Monster Zero because that was one of my big ones as a kid, and I could watch it over and over.
So that one's more for nostalgic reasons.
Yeah, like my heart is just all over that movie. Favorite? Oh, God. It's tough. It's, Mothra vs. Godzilla, Biollante, GMK, Terra Mechagodzilla. I mean, I'll go with Monster Zero. That's always an easy choice.
Monster Zero.
Yeah.
When I think of that question, I got to think of it in two different ways. Mm-hmm. I got to think of it in the nostalgia way, and then I got to think of it in the, okay, what did I legitimately like the best?
Right.
So for me, nostalgia, that's so tough. I'm trying to think which one I would have liked the best. I think I would probably say Ghidorah, the three-headed monster.
Fuck, yeah, I was going to say that too.
I was going to say that. Seeing Godzilla team up with Mothra and Rodan, and at that point, in my Godzilla fandom, I was quite confused because I would see movies where Godzilla was the villain and see movies where he's the hero, and I was like, what is going on?
Right, and yeah, because they're not released in chronological order in the States, so you get them whenever. It's like he's fighting the smog monster, and then all of a sudden he's got a son, and you're like, what's going on?
Oh, man, the smog monster, it took me forever to find that film to watch.
Yeah, it was one of the lost films for a while.
My favorite all-timer, though, is Godzilla versus Destroyer.
Destroyer.
I mean, if you're a Godzilla fan and you watch that film at the end when he is dying and they're shooting the cold lasers at him and shit, how can you not just feel a well of emotion?
Oh yeah, to this day I have a hard time watching that ending. Like I can't do it. I can't fucking do it. Like I'll just turn it off or something.
The writing isn't the best on these, but I thought it was pretty goddamn clever that he was a nuclear reactor and he was about to explode. Like that was the way they were going to get rid of him.
Yeah, it was really good writing.
And they tied it back to the oxygen destroyer.
Right.
With the pre-cam, that was the villain he was fighting, is the one that killed him basically in the first film.
Yeah, that one's good. I like it. I mean, there's a lot of like an obvious Aliens ripoff sequence in that. That's like even with the radar. It's oh my god, what are you doing?
That film was before Gamera Legion, right? Because Gamera Legion kind of did the same thing.
Right. Gamera came out in 95, the first one. So the first one came out in 95, which is when Destroyer came out. And then Legion, which is my personal favorite kaiju movie of all time. Yeah, it came out in 96. So the joke is Toho did it first, Dai did it better.
Dude, let's talk about the Gamera fucking shit.
I can talk at 5 hours about
everyone
each
talks
movie.
about, you know what? Everyone talks about Godzilla.
Right.
But Gamera, that trilogy is where it's at.
Jesus Christ. I know. Like we have our little
G-Fest chat.
Our little G-Fest chat, or our group, group chat with a bunch of artists, and you're in it, and you chime in every once in a while. But
let me just, for the listener, there's G-Fest, which is this annual convention in Chicago. Bellotti will be there again this year. And I've met a bunch of artists through this comic convention, or not comic convention.
Right.
And they're all artists. And then there's just me I don't do art. I just chime in and read and laugh. But go ahead, continue.
But we were talking, and I think I was sending you guys clips because I've been revisiting the Gamera movies again, and I'm just watching these movies. And I'm like, motherfucker, like they're so fucking good. And they have no reason to be good. And the director was never a fan of Gamera. He hated Gamera. And he didn't hate him, but he wasn't a fan. He was a Godzilla fan.
Kaneko,
yeah.
Kaneko.
All the other guys, like no one... I know maybe like two original Gamera fans from like the 60s, because people just sort of poo-poo over those original movies. They were made for kids, and they were just kind of stupid. So these new movies, there's a trilogy of Gamera movies. Came out in 95, 96, and 99. Changed the game. I mean, if you want to know how to blend suitmation, like guy in suit with CGI, and give an adult story, look at those fucking movies. Legendary just did that shit because they stole wholesale from Gamera 3 for that first Godzilla movie. I mean, it's like, guys, like, did you watch a Godzilla movie before you made this movie? Like, you've clearly been watching Gamera.
Yeah, I mean, all the stuff where they're fighting. What's that city where he first encounters the Gaios in Gamera 3? Do you remember that city? Gamera's
Shibuya.
Not Shibuya.
Yeah,
right?
Shibuya. Holy
where he's
shit.
not tethered to humans anymore, so he's just going all out, and he's the carnage all around him. The collateral damage is just immense.
Yeah, like when you first saw that, what was the first thing that went through your head after watching the first two movies?
Oh, when I saw, first off, I was just like, holy shit, Gamera's fucking insane.
Yeah.
that was exactly what I thought.
Right.
And then I was at the age, it was around 11, 12.
Right.
So at that point I could appreciate things looking better, and I was thinking to myself, holy shit, man, this looks real. Like this actually looks real. And the way they shot it with the perspective of looking up, I believe there's a scene where they're in a subway and you can see them fighting through the hole.
Oh yeah.
And that perspective just made the monsters way more menacing than they ever had any right to be.
Yeah, 100%.
And all that stuff is in the legendary Godzilla, when Godzilla's fighting the Mutos in San Francisco. Like you get that same perspective, that same feel.
Yeah, even the
I mean, even the shot where they're in the bunker and you look up and you can see the fucking Mudo about to attack Godzilla. That's straight from Gamera versus Giles.
Yeah, it's all there.
Gamera 3.
It's all there. To give context for the listeners who probably turned it off because they heard Gamera.
Who's Gamera?
Yeah, I don't care. Talk about Bruce Lee.
Get back to Bruce Lee.
Fucking wrestling.
Fuck all y'all. We're talking about Gamera.
Yeah, so Gamera, if you don't mind, I'll give a brief summary.
You're way better at explaining. You're a poet, man.
Well, I'm a nerd. August is a poet. He's a warrior poet. I'm just a guy. I'm just a man. Gamera is a giant fire-breathing flying turtle. It sounds so stupid, but when you watch it, you're like, holy shit. So Gamera was created by Atlantis because Atlantis was an advanced civilization, and they created these bat-like creatures called the Gyaos, Gyas. The Gyaos started feeding on mankind or the people of Atlantis, and they were growing to a large size. And they
turned on their creators.
Turned on their creators. So the people of Atlantis made Gamera they genetically modified a sea turtle to fight the Gyaos. So he's like the hunter. Like, the Muto is Gyaos and Godzilla is Gamera, the hunter, the predator.
Right.
So
looking to achieve balance.
Well, exactly. God, I fucking hate you, Legendary. I hate you so much.
You don't like that?
I don't like the first one. I'm excited for the second one.
Okay.
But
back to Gamera.
Yeah, back to Gamera.
Back to what really everyone's here to listen to.
Exactly. They press play to hear us talk about Gamera. 3 movies and even Godzilla fans don't even watch. Anyway, so they find this floating island in the middle of the Pacific, and it has all these rocks on it, and they go and they excavate it, and they find this monolith, and it has like these little tear-shaped amulets, and they collect them all. And
then they got all the Pokemon. No, sorry.
Yeah, they find all the Pokemon. Where was it? Oh, yeah. So they find these amulets, and then all of a sudden the Gyaos birds start waking up. They start hatching from this island. They start eating people. And then this girl who's on the expedition, whose father's on the expedition, she grabs one of the amulets because she thinks it's cool, but it starts glowing. And then all of a sudden, when she, grabs onto it, Gamera wakes up. He comes out. He breaks out of the rocks. And then when Gyaos is over, I think Tokyo, Gamera starts charging for him. And the girl has a psychic connection to Gamera. So basically, the people of Atlantis made these amulets for the inhabitants of Atlantis to sort of have a connection with the monsters, to say, we're here to fight with you. We're here to make you stronger, which is a really cool concept that you don't really see in a lot of monster movies. So the first movie is he's tied to humanity through this girl, and he fights the Gyaos. Gamera's victorious. Spoilers, because there's a sequel.
Sure.
And, he flies off, and that's it. Part 2 is an alien invasion that comes to Earth. And
that's your classic kaiju
classic kaiju
alien invasion.
Yeah. And it's either the aliens they're not malevolent. They're not there to destroy because they're like the War of the Worlds aliens. That's part of their DNA they're like plants where they basically go and they multiply, and that's how they live. But in order for them to live, we have to die. So
right. They shoot a bunch of oxygen in the air, right?
Oxygen. They shoot a space seed that goes to the next planet.
Yeah.
And they have all these insects, and they have the Mother Legion, which is like a giant insect kaiju.
Very well thought out, the way that these aliens are here to destroy, and not intentionally.
Right.
They really don't give a fuck about humans. They're just trying to survive. And
they're just trying to survive.
The way they survive is to kill the planet that they're on.
The same way we survive, So let's go fucking, destroy everything so we could have our khaki and our khaki pants and our fucking lattes and our plastic. Anyway.
Not to put you on your soapbox here. Holy shit.
Jesus Christ. Fuck you. Fuck humanity. Jesus. So part 2 is basically the government of Japan coming together, trying to figure out how to stop the Legion. Gamera, again, sort of teams up with humanity. But the thing is, Gamera gets nuked because when they shoot the space seed, it's a nuclear explosion and they destroy an entire city, flames, everything. And Gamera's like dead. And the girl who has a psychic link goes there with a bunch of children, and she uses all of their strength to sort of, Gamera comes back and he takes off. But then the amulet's broken and she can't feel him anymore.
Yeah, it took all their strength.
Strength. So Gamera basically defeats the Legion. Spoilers.
Well, let me jump in here without that amulet, because this ties into part 3. Mm-hmm. He still feels obligated to help Earth. He has no obligation though to care about the people.
Exactly. Exactly. He doesn't have the tie anymore.
Right.
So at the end of part 2, he summons the Earth's mana, which is a very big thing in Japanese, Chinese culture, is the energy of the Earth, which George Lucas stole for the Force. Anyway, so Gamera absorbs a lot of mana from the planet, and he shoots like a fire blast from his stomach, his chest, that destroys Legion. So the third film comes, and the Gaos start awakening again, and they tie it.
It's because he drained from the mana, right?
Yes. So taking the mana has depleted the Earth of certain life energies that were in place to sort of keep the eggs from being hatched that were planted like millennia ago. So because of that, it started awakening, and then it starts awakening the Gauss, and then it awakens a creature called the Iris, which is, God, I can't remember because I'm in the middle of watching that movie right now, and I didn't get to the part where they explain the Iris, but it's another egg, and it's similar to...
It's DNA. A mutated Gauss, right?
It's a mutated Gauss. Yeah. And another girl who Gamera killed her family in the first movie hates Gamera, and she happens to find this. I mean, it's a little contrived, like, oh, well, she just happens to find it.
Right.
But she finds the egg, and she bonds with the creature. And in a twist on the amulet from the first movie, her hatred fuels the Iris. And she goes on a mission of vengeance against Gamera with Iris. But the thing is, Gamera's hunting the Gauss in this movie, and because he doesn't have that connection to humanity, like we were saying earlier, he's blowing up Gauss with his fireballs. They're falling onto cities. He's killing people because he doesn't care anymore. Not that he doesn't care; he just has no tie to humanity.
Right. So that's not his main priority anymore.
Right. So
his main priority is just to get rid of these fuckers.
Exactly. He's the alpha predator, like Godzilla, and he's basically, the Japanese government turns on him, but the girl that has a psychic link, like, she's still on his side, and she's like, no, Gamera will fight for us. And it basically ends with one of the greatest, it's short, but it's one of the greatest kaiju ending battles I've ever seen.
Amazing.
It's just, I don't even want to spoil that, because it's a movie that you could watch like a standalone. You could just watch it as that, but you don't get that payoff unless you watch the first two.
It's super fulfilling if you've seen the first two.
Yeah. It's one of the rare trilogies where they all get better in a way.
I agree. No, but they're all different. They're all their own sort of. The Gamera one is your classic good versus evil kaiju film.
Right.
Gamera 2 is your alien invasion. Gamera 3 is this dark. It's this dark drama almost.
Right.
With some mystical elements in it, but it's considerably darker than the first two.
Oh, much.
And even the ending, when he beats Iris, the ending after, it's not all that optimistic.
No. He spoilers. So he basically defeats Iris, but he blows off his hand in the process because Iris, Iris stabs his hand to the wall with one of her tentacles.
Right.
And she starts draining his life, his energy out of him. And Gamera at the same time has his hand inside of Iris because he reaches into her to grab the little girl that bonded with Iris. This sounds insane, but it's absolutely amazing.
It's much better. Or it's hard to describe, but very well done on screen.
Yeah, it's so well done. So it's this tense Mexican standoff with the two of them, and Gamera's like, "Fuck, what do I do?" So he blows off his pinned hand and screams and pulls his other hand out. So then Iris fires its fireball at Gamera that it absorbed from him, but he catches it with his nub of an arm, and he turns because Gamera, if you don't know, you probably don't know, most of you out there, all two of you out there that like Gamera, or don't like Gamera, he can manipulate fire. So he turns the fire into a fire hand and sticks it right into Iris and just explodes. And you're like, oh my God, that was amazing. And then he puts the girl down and he revives her with, and she sort of comes, she's like, oh my God. Like, you could see that she is on Gamera's side after that, and everyone is like rejoicing. And then the next shot is this typhoon that was surrounding the city during the end battle. It starts breaking away, and you see a military commander. He gets a call and he goes, there's a Gauss flock of millions heading towards Japan for Gamera right now. And he said, we're changing our mission. We're going after Gauss. And the last shot is Gamera with one arm walking in a city of fire towards he's walking away into the Gauss flock. And
he's walking towards the Gauss flock. Yeah.
Yeah. It just ends.
It's his last stand. He's severely outmatched, and he's going to die.
He's going to die.
Well, the movie starts. So There was some debate I've seen online. This is the way the movie Gamera 3 starts with them doing underwater some sort of underwater mission,
right?
And you see all the Gamera shells there.
The guy at the Gamera graveyard.
Yeah. Some had speculated that those were all the failed attempts at a Gamera. I had speculated, or I interpreted it as that this war has been happening for generations upon generations, and he was the last. So there's been other Gameras before him, and they've died. They've, as it shows that they're mortal. They've lost the battles, and he's the last of his kind.
Yeah,
so which is that the one? Is that the way you've interpreted it, or was the other way?
I kind of went both ways. I thought it was because they call it the Gamera graveyard, which means they died,
right?
And then some people were like those are the prototypes, but I
feel like it's better if it. I mean, the movie is much more rewarding if he's the last of his kind.
It is much more rewarding. Yeah, I think it is. And
it starts the movie off on a tone where, oh my God, this is dark.
Like he's going to die. Like, Gamera's going to die. They just don't show it. But the original ending that they wrote was the Gauss wipe out all of humanity and leave Japan. And the director, Kaneko, was like, we can't do that. It's too dark. So he changed it. And it cost him and the screenwriter had a feud after that. And I don't think they ever spoke to this day over it. So basically that all the Gauss were just going to Japan. Like throughout the movie, what they do really well is they show you, but without like overdoing it, like a Michael Bay movie would just show you everything.
Right.
They have news clippings of Gauss appearing in Mexico, New York, London. So this whole movie, you have this buildup, a slow subplot of these Gauss appearing around the world and killing people and decimating humanity, but you don't really see it. So by the end, you finally see the flock and how many there are, and the whole screen is filled with these Gauss birds, like heading towards Kyoto, where Gamera was fighting Iris. So
insane ending. Oh, it's so good.
Oh, it's so good. And then there was a Gamera 4 that was a fan movie. Did you hear about that?
I heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I never ended up watching it because in my mind that the series is done right there. If Kaneko's not doing it, the series is done.
Yeah. I know. I saw the beginning of it, and it takes place at the end of part 3 where you see the flock, the Gauss horde, and Gamera just basically ignites himself and explodes and takes them all out, which is really cool. Mm-hmm. But it kind of like takes away that mystique of like what really happened.
What happened, yeah.
The movie in your head is always better than what you see anyway.
Yeah, you don't need to know what happened, I think. What did you think of when Kaneko came over then and did Godzilla and then did GMK?
That's one of the best Godzilla movies ever made.
You love that movie. See,
oh my God.
That's right. I was super disappointed with that film.
Yeah. You know why though? I know why you're disappointed, because in a way I had to accept it as this is the best we're going to get, because Kaneko's ideas originally, Toho didn't want him to do certain things. For people that don't know, he originally wanted 3 other monsters to be in it.
Yeah, Baragon, and Anguirus.
And Toho was like, no, they're not bankable, because Toho knows everything, apparently. They're always right. So they had to put King Ghidorah and Mothra, but they kept Baragon.
Right.
And Anguirus was going to be an ice monster. Baragon was the earth monster, and Varan was the wind monster. They were elemental monsters. So he had to like get rid of that story. And they kind of, I think they just hamstrung him a little bit. They kind of gave him a lot more difficulties making that than when he made the Gamera film. So that's why there's like a huge difference. Not a huge difference, but there is a difference. I mean, I think that movie blows away a lot of the movies from the 90s in terms of what it was trying to achieve. Mm-hmm. And it's cool if you feel different. I mean, that's I mean, I enjoyed the film. Don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. For me, there was just something off. I think I had the expectation of the Gamera films walking in. And, he tried to tie in the earth and the elements and the mystique. Right. It just didn't resonate for me that Godzilla was now representing all the forgotten souls of the war.
Right.
I know they changed him up a little bit. I also didn't like the Godzilla design. I thought he had a pot belly the entire time.
Yeah. No, you said as much. Yeah.
And it would have been much better, I think, if they would have had the monsters that he had originally wanted. King Ghidorah, for me, as a hero, doesn't work. They make him a lot smaller.
Right.
Mothra's tiny. It doesn't work for me that they're using these iconic characters and totally depowering them and basically remaking their origins to fit this narrative that wasn't originally the narrative he wanted.
No, I agree. I still to this day, I don't like that end battle I have a hard time watching because I like the fight with Baragon so much more.
That's a good fight.
That's a great fight. But the end is kind of like, it kind of just goes on, and it's Godzilla's the most powerful one. And I know what they were doing, but it's just that the changes were so drastic that it was hard to like accept it in your brain. That like, oh, well, he's a hero now. He's not a villain, and they're mystical creatures. And so I appreciate Kaneko tying it to World War II. I like the symbolism in the movie because Kaneko is a pacifist, and he's very much in line with the Shiro Honda, who directed the original Godzilla film, who was more of a pacifist and anti-war and more liberal. So that stuff I appreciate. Forgetting the mistakes of the past is basically, that's kind of how Godzilla was revived, like forgetting about the World War II victims and just sort of make, the younger generation having disregard for it. And that's what sort of brought these creatures back again. So that element I liked, but yeah, there's, like I said, I like it more than most of the other films that came out in the 90s, but you're always going to have that what could have been,
Right.
If he had the money or the original kaiju or whatever.
Let me ask you to do this. So if someone's made it this far in our episode, and I don't know if you have, because you probably stopped once we started talking about camera, or
probably.
even kaiju films.
Yeah.
But you're great at explaining things. Why is the first Godzilla so awesome? Just tell people. Preach to the public without going into a plot for plot or a whole synopsis of the film.
The first Godzilla is a very dark anti-war film about the dangers of nuclear warfare and the devastation it leaves in its wake. Godzilla is essentially a walking nuclear weapon in that original film. And it had a lot of dark scenes in it. There's a scene in it where there's a mother with her children in Tokyo as Godzilla's destroying it, and there's no place for her to run, and she's basically crying and screaming and waiting for death, and it's so hard to watch.
Well, she's whispering to her kids, "You're going to see your dad soon."
Yeah, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
We're going to be home soon.
And then the part that always gets me is the prayer for peace. So when Godzilla devastates Tokyo, the Tsuburaya, the special effects technicians, from what I understand, they looked at pictures of Hiroshima, and sort of made Tokyo look like Hiroshima.
Right.
And there's a sequence where they have a prayer for peace where all these young choir girls on TV are all singing in unison for peace and, for basically with regard to the devastation of Japan. And for anybody that has ever wondered about the atrocities of war and what it does to people, but don't want to watch a movie like, there's a movie called Hiroshima. Right. I haven't seen it, but it's pretty heavy. Or I always joke around about Schindler's List to want to know about the concentration camps. You sort of watch that, or Saving Private Ryan if you want to know about D-Day. That's a movie to watch to sort of see like I don't want to say lighthearted, but if you want to get the effect of what the mentality in Japan was like, because Godzilla started as like a sort of cash grab by Toho. We need to make this monster movie because of King Kong. And we need to make this movie, and they were going to make it a giant octopus. And Honda sort of came in and they made it something else when they didn't have to. And that's why I think everybody should see the original Godzilla, because it's still haunting. It's in black and white. The effects still hold up in a lot of sequences.
100%.
And the message of the movie is that the scientist that is one of the central characters of the story, he makes a weapon 10 times more powerful than a nuclear weapon. And it's the only thing that they could use to stop Godzilla. And he is so afraid to use it because he knows if this falls into the wrong hands, it's going to be used for malevolent reasons. And it could basically end mankind quicker than a nuclear weapon could. And it's called the Oxygen Destroyer, which destroys all the oxygen and the water supplies, and it destroys everything in its path. And at the end, he uses it on Godzilla. He goes underwater with another diver, and he cuts the rope and he sacrifices himself because he can't bear the thought of his weapon going into the wrong hands. So he wants to die, and he wants the weapon to die with him. And it's so powerful for
Great
anybody.
ending.
Yeah, it's such an emotional ending. And it's just like, the monster's dead and everybody's crying because of the scientist and just the story. It's It's so
there's
heavy.
no real winner at the end of that. It's not like they celebrate this victory. The whole thing's tragic. The whole movie's tragic. And your point about watching this film and getting the feel of how it was. It's a film where you watch it and you're not expecting to feel the way you do about. You're not expecting to learn about the atrocities of war. It's a backdoor way of learning about what happened to Japan. Because even it's about what happens when man kind of plays God with these weapons and the consequences of that. And even when they designed Godzilla, his skin is supposed to reflect the burn marks of nuclear war.
Right.
So it's all symbolism of this walking time bomb that was created just because humans were irresponsible with the weapons they were making and how they were using them, which is the atom bomb.
Yeah. And that's my favorite interpretation of Godzilla out of all of them is he is nature's answer to us for being foolish and thinking we can play God.
Right.
He's the answer. He's there to set things back. He's, and he's our punishment for being so arrogant and foolish. And that's why Honda, he never wanted to make sequels. He's like, you can't make a sequel to a Godzilla movie. But his career at the time sort of dictated that that's where he was finding his success and that's what they were giving him. And he wasn't, a rebel rouser. So he was like, oh, I'll make this movie, but it's going to be stupid, Did
you like the sequel?
Godzilla Raids Again?
Yeah.
I like some of it. The end was pretty cool, but I didn't like the design. The fight scene was really well done.
Because they sped it up. They made it look like they were feral animals getting after it.
Yeah, they fucked up. They shot it at the wrong speed, and then no one ever corrected them, and that's why it looks the way it does. They're moving much faster than they really should.
Right.
But yeah, after that, it's a mixed bag, honestly. Of and King Kong vs. Godzilla, he's a goof. He's like an idiot. Him and Kong are like morons. It's a total satire.
Yeah, they are actually. Now that I think about that movie, they're both just giant goofballs getting after it.
Yeah, and but Mothra vs. Godzilla is probably my favorite.
Kind of takes him a little bit more back to his roots of being a destroyer.
Yeah, destroyer, dangerous. There's just no happiness at all in that movie. It's really dark. But yeah, that's like my thing with Godzilla is that you can make fun of it. You go look at Godzilla vs. Megalon and be like, oh, this is a fucking joke or whatever.
Jaguar.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch, I saw the original Godzilla in the theater, subtitled back in. I think 10 years ago, whatever, and you left the theater just feeling horrible. I mean, it has that sort of effect on you.
It should. I mean, because it's how the war devastated Japan. That's what they want you to feel.
And as someone who has read a lot of World War II history, because my grandfather served and he was stationed in the Pacific, there were atrocities on both sides. I'm not sitting here. Yeah, I'm not sitting here defending Japan because they attacked first, and there's no like, well, Pearl Harbor started World War II. No, it didn't. I mean, the Japanese were in China in 1931.
Right.
And the Germans were in Poland, 1938. So, there wasn't just one thing. There was a lot. World War I led into World War II.
Also, yeah, exactly. World War I, the World War I happening led to World War II.
Right.
They're both heavily connected.
They're both connected. And the Japanese did a lot of really bad shit in the Pacific to Americans and Chinese.
I don't think there's ever a war where people don't do really bad shit. There's never, there's this classic sense of good versus evil, and World War II is always propped up as the last war where there was good versus evil.
Right. And
there is a lot of that, but there was atrocities on both ends.
There was. I mean, and two atrocities were the firebombing of Japan, which did more devastation than both atom bombs combined.
Right.
Because those houses were made of wood, and they had these napalm bombs, the jelly that would just stick to wood, and then when they would drop the bomb, it would explode, and the jelly would just spread over to all these other homes. And I mean, more people died in that than the atomic bombs. And then there's the bombing of Dresden, the firebombing of Dresden, which was another one. There were two things it was basically, you could look at it as like 4 years of frustration of fighting this war, and the Allies just saying, fuck it, we're just bombing you back into the Stone Age.
Right.
But they bombed non-military cities and innocent people, so it's,
it's war, man.
It's war. There's no, there's good, you think there's good guys and bad guys, but again, there's atrocities on both sides, so.
Yeah, man. Well, we're about an hour and a half probably into this. I think we can start to wrap this up a little bit.
Let's do it.
Where can people find you? Where can people see your art? Give them the whole spiel so that if they've been listening this far, they're probably interested and want to look up shit. If they already weren't interested and have heard this stuff before, repeat it again. So for anybody that has stuck around this long, my artwork can be found at robo7.com. It's ROBO, the number 7.com. I'm also on Facebook, Robo7. It's just the word Robo7, no numbers or anything. ROBOSEVEN. And I'm on, wait, was that it? Did I just say Facebook or Instagram? You said Facebook, but that's also Instagram, right? Yeah, I'm sorry. That's my Instagram. It's just the word Robo7. Facebook is Robo number 7, the art of John Bellotti Jr. I have all my artwork, my T-shirts, stuff like that. You can find it all on there. So let me clarify for the audience, because you didn't explain it in the most eloquent way. You kind of got you got a little confused between Facebook and Instagram. I did. Facebook or his site, it's the number 7, Robo7. Instagram, it is 7 spelled out. Yes, because when I made my website, Robo7, the word was taken. And then on Instagram, the word Robo7 with the number was taken. I was like, you got to be kidding me. So I had to sort of pick and choose. You know, what's the significance behind Robo7? I probably have asked you before, but I clearly have forgotten. I think it's a cool name, but I think it's because one of my favorite animes is called Giant Robo. And I love the Ultra Hero, which we didn't even talk about, Ultra 7, which was the second Ultraman character. And I said, let me just combine them and see what that sounds like. Simple enough. Yeah. Well, cool, man. Well, thanks for coming on. Yeah, no, I was really excited. I apologize if it turned into the Bruce Lee Eastern podcast, but it's what we love, right, Tony? We got to talk about whatever the guest wants. I'm not here to dictate what you want to talk about. I'm just going to steer the conversation so we keep going. So that's where it went. All right, that's fine. All right, cool guys. Thanks for listening. Bye.